Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of Tucked In. This is Haggard, also known as Tucker, or Tucker, also known as Haggard. We are nuking. Unfortunately. We're going to look at some things. We're going to look at mostly alt BTC and why, where, and when it's been showing strength, what it means. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe. We always appreciate when you guys do that. And let's dive into the video. I guess first things first, wanted to just start with a little Bitcoin analysis. And then we'll get into alt BTC. I know that's the title of the video, but wanted to just look at a little Bitcoin first. So not looking great. Not looking great. As of right now, we did put in a pretty high time frame top at 126. And we're nuking. We officially lost weekly structure right here, in my opinion, at 101. We closed the weekly well below it, and we are continuing to the downside right now. Just looking at this, actually, I'm going to put these spider lines on because I like them. Just looking at this, I think you could maybe draw another one here. Those are really the only relevant ones. Let's go down to the 3-day. Was hopeful we'd maybe get a bounce at 96 because of this spider line. We did not. We didn't even try. Excuse me. Didn't even try. We nuked right through it. We do have this other one sitting at 90, which we did try to bounce off of a few times in here. But as it stands, I mean, this daily candle is pretty ugly. There is no wick to the top side or the downside. This is just a red meat stick to the downside, unfortunately. I don't love it. Actually. Even if I'm bearish, I don't love it. I don't love that there's no topside wick. I mean, that shows extreme weakness, but usually it doesn't leave a topside wick, or doesn't leave without putting in a topside wick. So that is interesting, actually. I hadn't looked at that, but anyways, I think at this point, closing below 90 on the daily, I think you're coming down all the way through the 80s, probably down to about 77, 78, something like that. That's really as blunt and unbiased as I can put it. You do technically kind of have some levels in here that I would look to, like this and this, that you're actually in right now. Let's see, I'll just make it a box. There we go. This is really, I think, this area between 90 and 88.7, your last line of defense to put in a little bounce. Maybe even just back up to here, right? Back up to 97. But if you can't get a decent bounce out of here, there is absolutely no reason that you don't come back into 77. In my opinion, there is no reason that you wouldn't do that. So just wanted to do a quick Bitcoin breakdown. That's the high time frame levels that I'm looking at. But what I wanted to talk about was the alt Bitcoin strength, right? Or others dominance, others over Bitcoin, total 3 over Bitcoin, all that good stuff. Because we have seen, let's just go to total 3 over Bitcoin. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Let's go to the weekly. We're seeing total 3 over Bitcoin actually green during this downtrend. Well, it's actually been green since June, but we drew this box a long time ago, and this was 1010, obviously, right here. this is probably too high time frame. We should bring it down a little bit. Basically, since November 3rd, right? Which I'm gonna put Bitcoin. Actually, Bitcoin's already over here, so let me get rid of this. November 3rd. Since this high, right? Since 110K Bitcoin, we've seen others, or not others, total 3 outperform, right? Which is very interesting. Not necessarily taking it as some sort of giant bull sign, right? Because I don't think it is. But interesting nonetheless. And I want to go back and look at some other times this has happened. Actually, we're gonna need Bitcoin over there. So when has others in a downtrend outperformed Bitcoin? Well, I doubt at any point this bull market, but we will see. We will see. Others outperformed here when Bitcoin was going sideways. Not really what we're looking for. Others had big outperformance during this period. Sorry, I keep saying others. It's total 3. Big outperformance during this period before another leg down. And again, I guess that was kind of bull market. Obviously, you had kind of a blow off or a big leg up in others while Bitcoin was distributing at 50, 60K last cycle, which is not really where we are now. Bitcoin's kind of already distributed and is on its way down. So I want to look at this a little bit more. And I do want to preface, like, I don't think this cycle is just going to be a repeat of last cycle at all, really. You did have kind of a blow off double top in others while Bitcoin was already on its way down here, right? In November 2021. But it's very rare that we see others outperforming Bitcoin in a downtrend. I mean, I can speculate. I don't know for sure. I could speculate. To me, it's that there was a lot more leverage to unwind in Bitcoin and less so in altcoins. And altcoins are a lot more spot driven than Bitcoin at this point because there's so much paper Bitcoin and so much leverage. Bitcoin's probably taking a decent hit via MSTR as well. But nonetheless, the alt strength cannot be denied, honestly. Like this is definitely significant. I've been noticing it in ETH, actually. I've been noticing it in ETH intraday. But yeah, I would say it's because altcoin holders simply won't sell, right? Like I think it's really just because altcoin holders refuse to sell. Whereas Bitcoin, the boomers, the ETF buyers have no problem selling. People on leverage have no problem getting long and then getting liquidated. People have no problem shorting Bitcoin, right? So there just seems to be a lot more unwind going on in Bitcoin than altcoins, even though altcoins are down, right? Like if I just pull up total 3, I mean, it's obviously down, right? But it is, as we just looked at, holding up better than Bitcoin, right? Even in a downtrend. So to me, I'm not necessarily buying it. I'm not necessarily buying the alt strength as some sort of bullish thing. I think there's probably going to be an unwind at some point. There's probably going to be a capitulation, whether that's from here or higher or lower, wherever. I think there's a catch up trade potentially to the downside on altcoins, unfortunately. I don't see why. I don't think it's necessarily people bidding altcoins either. I think they just have less sellers than Bitcoin. But there's really not a great technical reason or something to look at, right? I mean, we can look at ETH BTC, of course, right? Which has been in a downtrend, since August, it's been in a downtrend, but it hasn't really given that candle to the downside, right? That big, you know, and I think if it's going to be down into this 0.025 region and then kind of, on a high time frame, set a higher low and then go up. That's kind of my bias on ETH BTC. If we want to look at Bitcoin dominance, this is kind of what we're talking about. Like the thing has been down. The thing has been down for a while. This recent, right, since November 4th, this is total 3 outperforming, essentially. I'm just not taking a ton of signal from this chart. Obviously, the general premise is, up here, you want to buy altcoins, and down here, you want to buy Bitcoin, right? In order to catch this move in Bitcoin and this move in altcoins, right? I don't know. I don't think things have resolved quite yet. I don't think we're done. I think altcoins are probably going to need to give, because normally you don't see kind of a rebirth or reinvigorated interest in crypto, or aka crypto going up, without some sort of capitulation. And with what we've seen on Bitcoin in terms of funding, right, which people are still clearly longing every dip, and then getting liquidated. Like, I don't think there's been capitulation yet. I don't, unfortunately. And I do at this point think we need it to go back up, because there was so much distribution at 100K, above 100K, excuse me. Just this whole thing, that all these guys underwater is not the bullish thing that I think, some people online are trying to portray it as, right? Like, short-term holders underwater is bearish. Like, to me, it just confirms that every bounce into 100K is going to get sold into, basically. So that's kind of where I'm at with Bitcoin. And obviously this has been exacerbated by Binance just twop selling Bitcoin for the last, month, essentially. It doesn't help that boomers are selling. It doesn't help. We just had the largest ETF outflows, daily outflows ever today. So I think things need to go a little bit lower first, really. So, yeah, I mean, alt BTC strength is nice, but I don't think it lasts. And like, I think a good barometer is actually hype. Hype has been incredibly strong. We looked at this on Market Check earlier today. Hype is sitting at like where Bitcoin was at 104, right? Hype is basically at 104K and refusing to break down. I absolutely would not want to short the strongest alt in the market, but I do think there's a catch-up trade to be had. But I will be happy to not participate in that, honestly. I think it looks bearish. I do. I think hype is still distributing up here. And I think it probably will catch up, but could be wrong. Let's look at ETH real quick. I mean, to me, trying to call bottom on this is not worth it until you at least get into this structure down here, which is like 23, 24, 2500. I will say, this is significant, I think. Hang on, there we go. I think this is significant. I think you can get a little bounce out of 2900, but I do think you're probably going to have to come into the bottom of this structure down at like 2400. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with the alt BTC strength. I don't think it lasts. As long as MSTR continues just nuking relentlessly. I don't think there's going to be a great bid on Bitcoin and therefore altcoins. Also, this is the tariff low. You know, this is the tariff low on MSTR. This is the same low on Bitcoin at 74K. We know that MSTR usually leads, unfortunately. So my expectation is somewhat for Bitcoin to come into that low. And like we had that other line, this one. No, it's this one. Right. I think this is actually your bid spot for Bitcoin. Somewhere in here. Let's make this green. I think this is your bid spot for Bitcoin. Between 74 and 77. Not that you can't put in little bounces along the way, but it just doesn't seem like anyone's capitulated yet. So I think that needs to happen before we can start to kind of build. And that's the other thing. I think you need to build out a base at a minimum. Even if we're going to go up from here, I think you need this type of price action. So in my opinion, this would be the best outcome. So I think you need a little bit lower and then sideways to sum things out. But anyways, that's pretty much it for me today, guys. I know it's a little gloomy out there, but I think in terms of time, we're a lot closer than people think to a bottom. But I don't think it's in quite yet. But anyways, like I said, that's it for me. This has been Tucked In. I will be back next week with another episode. Hit the like and subscribe on your way out, and take care.